I like to try and make sure that the content will serve as many purposes as possible, because if you can do that, it really cuts down the amount of work you have to do, right? So I built this framework.
Welcome to Search Party. Today I'm joined by Zoe Burke, the head of brand, content, and social, that's a lot by the way, at Bridebook, the #1 wedding planning app in the UK. She is an expert in the wedding niche, having also worked at brands like Hitched and The Knot earlier in her career, and has been recognized with the Systrix Visibility Award for SEO Excellence and a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Wedding Industry Awards. Welcome to the show, Zoe.
Thank you for having me. That was a very lovely introduction. I might get you to recite that everywhere I go.
Listen, I love somebody who's just killing it in a niche. Like, you are just the queen of weddings. It's really cool. I'm really excited to see how that's kind of like shaped your perspective on what we're going to talk about today. But first, we start with two truths and a lie. So, Zoe, what do you have for me?
I have broken my nose 4 times. I have a 6-year-old child. I have an allergy to peanut butter.
I'm going to say the peanut butter allergy is wrong.
Yes.
Oh, I'm usually bad at this, so I'm excited. Okay, I got that right. What did you bring to the party today?
So I have brought my purposes framework.
Ooh, okay. Tell us what the purposes framework is. I guess literally, what does it stand for? And then why did you create it?
Yeah, so it stands for the point, understanding intent, research, planning for multi-platform, it's a bit of a cheat that one, optimize, spinning for social, evolution, and stopping single-use content.
Okay, so there's a lot there that we need to unpack.
Yeah.
Not intended, but now it is. What is the purpose of the purposes framework?
So, I mean, we talked a bit about me being in a niche for a long time, and that means that I have obviously spent a long time in one field doing something that I'd like to think I do quite well. And I would get quite frustrated, especially weddings. Weddings are a tricky beast, right? They're unusual. You only have your audience for 2 years. They tend to have zero brand awareness of you before they come into your space. It's very hard to pitch weddings to people who are not wedding planning. And they are a very captive, very high intent audience for a very short amount of time. So I got so sick of people coming in from big, massive brands or from different marketing factions and coming in and saying like, well, we've got to do this, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And I didn't agree with it. And I didn't want to get a reputation for being really obnoxious or difficult. So I built this framework to help us understand why we're doing what we're doing. But I think it works in every single field. It's not just wedding specific, but it works really well for weddings.
So what does it provide guidance on?
Creating content and making sure that you are creating content for the right reasons and that it is good quality content that serves a purpose. And often across the board, people work in marketing teams. The team is always smaller than you'd like it to be, right? You always wish you had more heads, yeah? And so I like to, when I am working with teams, when I'm being given ideas that I need to sign off on, when I'm pitching things, when I'm brainstorming, I like to try and make sure that the content will serve as many purposes as possible, because if you can do that, it really cuts down the amount of work you have to do, right? So I built this framework to help, make sure that we're creating content with purpose and that it has more than one purpose. It is a multi-purpose mnemonic.
I love that. It's so funny you say that because that's very similar to the presentation I'm putting together for SEO Week, which by the time this goes out, that'll have already happened. But yeah, like I've actually got a very similar wavelength about. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear how you break this down. Okay, so how will it make sense to walk through this? You want to go through each letter, or?
I think that probably makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. So we start with P, obviously, for what's the point? And this is, for me, it's something anyone I work with, I'm like, please get really comfortable asking this question, because it can feel really uncomfortable. But I think it served me really well in my career being able to ask this. When somebody asks you to do something, if you don't understand why, doesn't matter if you understand what it is or how to do it, that's fine. But if you don't understand why you're doing it, make sure you clarify. And I say this to the teams I manage as well. I'm like, keep me accountable. If I ask you to do something and you don't understand why, tell me, because you will do a much better job if you understand why you're doing it. You'll be much more invested in how it performs. You'll put much more care into what you're doing, but also it just shows that you're not wasting your time. Like, there has to be a really clear point to why you're doing it, because if you can't pass that hurdle, you shouldn't post it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something I've noticed on the content creation side of my career is how easy the communication can fall apart with, like, everyone who's involved on a project. Because 'cause you're right, like, there have been times I remember where, like, a designer will do something or, like, a writer, and they will never see the vision for the entire piece and, like, what it's trying to do, and it's like, "Wait, we need everybody to understand what the point of this is."
Yeah.
A, like you said, to get them motivated and to see that vision, but B, they'll do a better job if they know the intention of what they're creating rather than just being like, "Hey, design this," you know?
And it's scary to ask, it is, especially if it's somebody more senior than you, but I think when you ask, and don't just say, obviously, "What's the point?"
What's the point
Uh,
of that? Yeah.
yeah, but you say, Why are we doing this? What's the goal? What's the purpose?" And doing that, I think, actually has kind of a quiet power to it, and if you can really, like, calmly and intelligently ask somebody, "What's the purpose of this? What do we want out of it? Why are we doing it?" It actually makes you look really smart as well, and really, like, measured, and, like, you know what you're doing. So I think it is a great thing to get out of your comfort zone and feel comfortable saying to people, "Why are we doing this?" I ask it all the time. Like, I love asking it.
Yeah, that's a great first step here because like you said, that has ramifications on the work itself, but also just on, how you're perceived and, you know
And it goes to anything, really meetings in your calendar that you dread, that you don't know why you go to. Ask people, what's the point of this? Like, what do we want to get out of it? Like, people hate me because I ask this all the time.
I don't know, I think the people who don't like meetings probably love that you ask that.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, you have to. We're also short on time. We're also short on resource. If you don't have a clear purpose for what you're doing, you don't need to be doing it.
Alright, so tell me about you.
You is understanding the intent, but it is about having a deeper understanding, because we all know you can go onto Semrush, you can go onto Ahrefs, whatever you're using, Moz, I don't know, all the different types, and you'll see commercial, navigational, informational. But I think we need to go beyond that. That's not enough. So I really encourage my teams and anyone I've ever worked with to go beyond just looking at informational. Start looking at the search results, start looking at the other terms people search, look at the Google autofill, look at the questions at the bottom of the page, go onto social media and search these terms. Go onto TikTok. I can't stress this enough, right? Go onto TikTok and look at what people are searching around this, and that will give you a way better idea, because right now I can look up wedding planning and it will tell me that it's an informational search.
That just sounds like a great kind of avenue for instead of thinking of it as just like a search intent situation, you're thinking of it as like audience research.
Yeah. It's like human intent. It goes beyond your kind of basic categories, because those categories, they're not enough. And, they'll tell me that certain wedding venue search terms are commercial, but actually they're not really, not immediately. Nobody searches their wedding venue and converts into a booking on the first day that they found it. They're doing research, they're comparing, they're like looking at various different things, reading reviews, looking for information. So I think it's quite dangerous to just trust those 4 or 5 category intents that are put on things. They don't give you enough information.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Okay, what are we at? R?
R. So R is realistic research, and it kind of ties into the previous one as well. It's about not just looking at your keywords, because I see a lot of people think, well, I've got all these keywords, that's enough. It is about reading your competitors' content. And I've had people in the past say to me, well, I don't want to give them a click. We're going to have to give them a click, but don't worry, because by giving them a click and looking at what they're doing, we're going to build content that takes loads of clicks away from them in the end. So give them like a pity click, have a look, see what they're doing, absorb their content. Like, don't be precious about this stuff. Go and look at their videos, go and look at the articles they're writing, go and look at what they're doing. Really study the people who are doing it well and figure out what you need to do it better. And you can't do it better without doing that.
Do you ever, this is just a curiosity of mine, do you ever look outside of your own industry for that?
Yeah,
Like to get
all the time.
inspiration?
All the time. Yes. I am such a nerd, right? I I'm obsessed with Mad Men. That is my favorite thing in all the world. I'm on like my 25th rewatch or something at the moment.
Really? Wow. That's a good for your next two truths and a lie, that's a good one.
Yes, I should use that. I I love it so much, right? And what I love is watching them pitch the ideas to people. And it's kind of created this thing in me where now anytime I see something, I imagine how it was pitched, how it was discussed in the room, what people thought about it. And I find that fascinating. I love the Canva campaign recently. I don't know if they will have had it in the US because it featured a very iconic UK reality TV star called Gemma Collins. And she refers to herself as the GC. She's a very big character. And the whole campaign was that she was brought in to be their new head of brand or creative director, but she didn't know the brand. So the video was her striding into the office, pointing at a sign on the wall and going, "Is that the brand?" And learning how to use it on the job and being like, "This is actually amazing." And I thought that was so good because I imagined pitching to somebody, they're going to come in and they're not going to know our brand. Like that's going to be the sell. And people who are not willing to take risks would probably say, "No, we can't publish something where they're saying we don't know
Yeah.
what the brand is." But I think that kind of stuff is bold and it's brave and I love it. And I imagine being in the room and thinking, well, who said yes? Who said no? How did it go down? Yeah, it's,
I feel like I've done that with the things that I see that are wild choices, like, where I'm like, "This is terrible.
oh yeah, I
What
do
was
that
the
too.
pitch for that?"
Yeah.
But I need to do it more for the positive stuff too, because I like that you're kind of reverse engineering how would they have, you know, clarified the objective and why that was going to differentiate from other things. Because yeah, I think it's a fun, mental exercise.
Yeah. And, I come up with loads of weird ideas and I get told no a lot. And I do like to think, huh, I wonder if I'd been in the right, in a different room, if that would have been, my very own Gemma Collins. I don't know. I think we often think too much of campaigns, but even just everyday work that brands are doing that's resonating and working really well is worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. That makes total sense to me. We have another
We got
P.
another P. So this is planning for multi-platform. And this is a really big thing of mine as well, because I've worked in lots of incredibly small teams, but they still manage to be siloed. And it's so frustrating. And I think when you are creating a piece of content, at the point of its conception, you need to be really clear about where it could go outside of just what you're doing. So if you're making a social video and you know why you're doing it, you've done your research, you know what your goals are, what else can you do with this? Can it be turned into a piece for the website? Can it be a newsletter as well? Can it be a whole campaign across various different platforms? Don't just like one and done it. Like, and if you're creating an article, make sure that there's video content that supports it, that is also optimized for the same terms, because I think people can sometimes think that, oh, we can't compete with ourselves, but actually the person who's looking on Google probably isn't going to look on TikTok. So you make sure you get in front of a wider and more varied audience that way by making sure your content is transferable across lots of different platforms.
Yeah, we've actually been writing a lot about that on the Semrush and Backlinko side because it's the search everywhere optimization of it all, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's what's interesting to me is like choosing those platforms because yeah, you know yours, right? You've been in the wedding industry for so long that you probably know exactly where everybody is. But it is interesting to be like, you don't literally have to be everywhere because there are probably like you probably don't need to be on LinkedIn for the wedding industry, right? Like,
But yeah, it's knowing where your audience is and making sure your content works for multiple different platforms. And also don't get complacent because do you know what? When I first started, I think we had a Facebook page, but we didn't have Instagram. And my boss at the time was very anti-Instagram. He thought it was a fad.
yeah.
Look at what Instagram has
How
become.
many times do we think that's happened
Yeah,
throughout?
it's hard. It can be hard because some things crop up and disappear. It's hard to know which horse to back, but yeah, it's making sure you're open to adapting because, when it became clear TikTok was gonna be what it is, it suddenly became very apparent, okay, we need a better video strategy. And it's making sure that your content can work across multi-platforms. Doesn't mean every piece has to, but doesn't it make your life so much easier if you run a webinar and then you turn it into a blog and a newsletter and social content, and you haven't had to do 4 different pieces of work? You've just got one piece to reference.
Yeah, and when you put all that effort into just studying the audience and what, how this is going to help them with a pain point or something, it's like, why not use it in
Exactly.
many ways?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh?
optifying.
I'm losing track of where we are in
No,
the
I
the
know,
word.
it's tricky, isn't it? Purposes has got a lot of letters in it, but it does work. So optimize, obviously, re-optimize, but it's about optimizing beyond just typical SEO. So, I mean, we know now that we need to optimize for social search as well. But I think one thing that people often forget is email. You think that you don't have to optimize your emails because they don't appear publicly, but I can't tell you how many times I have searched my emails for something because I'm hopelessly unorganized,
True.
especially in my personal life, and I
Not
search
not you being disorganized when I said true, but I'm
it.
the same way, and you don't think about that.
No, and sometimes I can't find things that I know I've had that email, but it's because I'm searching for a more general keyword relating to it, and perhaps it's not in the email. So to be visible, and this is relevant in all industries, but I find it relevant in weddings as well, because things are done in such stages, and it might be that you get an email about one element and you're not ready for it yet, but in 2 months time you think, oh, actually I got an email with an offer for that and I'm ready to book it now. I need to find it. Like, making sure things are surfaceable everywhere is really important, I think.
That email tip is one you really don't hear very often, and, I'm, like, thinking about it now and how often I do that, and it's wild.
Yeah, it's all out of my own inability to organize, because sometimes you remember the brand that sent you the email and you can find it by the brand, but if you can't remember that, you might be searching, I don't know,
Yeah,
like
just, like,
the
and if you
marketing
type in, like,
advice, or
discount code, you get, like,
yeah,
4,000 emails because you
mhm.
get those from everyone, so yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, think about how the optimization translates to things outside of just the typical, streams, because, yeah, sometimes, especially with emails, it is a long game. You're waiting for when people are ready, so you should be optimizing that content so they can come back to you when they are.
That would be interesting to look at those analytics too, to see, how many days or weeks later somebody clicks on something in an email.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it in various jobs that, things have happened, and then few weeks later, you're getting stuff come in from the emails, and it's like, okay. I mean, in weddings, it is a little easier because you're like, everyone's buying their dress now, so they're going back to their email with the dress discount code or whatever. But no, it's definitely, I think, just making sure that when we are working on content at Bridebook, the thing I do is make sure that the content team has the keywords, the video team has the keyword, the CRM team has it, so everybody is working to the same keywords and everybody is optimizing.
I love that. Okay, S?
The first S is spin for social. And this is something that often doesn't get done because of that silo that, we see a lot in teams. When you are creating something for keyword content, it can be a little bit dry. It can be a little bit like, this isn't going to do well on social because it's a bit boring. So I really encourage my teams to think creatively about, how do we turn this standard wedding planning timeline article into something that is actually going to be social friendly, rather than just somebody reading out the article, basically. So creative brainstorms are really important for thinking outside the box with the content and how you deliver it in a way that is a lot more fun, because we all know SEO kind of took a lot of the fun and the joy out of writing, but it hasn't done that for social yet. So I think it's really important to think of a creative spin for your social strategy.
Who do you put in the room for those brainstorming sessions?
Anyone who'll come into the room, literally, I will invite anybody and everybody, because I think that I can't learn enough and I can't know enough. And I want people, whether they're on the sales team, whether they're in the B2B side of the business, whether they're working in product, I want to hear from all of them, because everyone will have a different perspective, and it might not be the perspective I need at that moment, but they might have something where they say, well, actually, I've always thought this. And I'm like, huh, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think the more views you can have, the better. If they know the product and they're involved in it and they care about it, then yeah, invite them. If they're busy, they can say no. But
Right, make it optional, but
yeah,
some people do enjoy. I love a brainstorming meeting. I will go to pretty much any brainstorming meeting I'm invited to because it's you don't always get to be creative in your day to day.
no, and everybody has such interesting perspectives, and if you only listen to the same ones all the time, that's when your brand becomes very one-dimensional. So, yeah, for me, it's about hearing from as many different people as possible, and even, like, obviously, I can't bring members of the public into my brainstorms, but I will talk to them on social media all the time, or if I'm at wedding events, I'm like, "Tell me what you're enjoying. Tell me what you wanna do differently. Tell me everything," because you can't work in weddings for 15 years without them becoming your absolute driving obsession in your life. So,
You've gotta be a wealth of knowledge at the you know.
luckily, people love to talk about their weddings, so I take advantage of that as much as possible.
That is a subject, you're right, that, people are not, quiet about, because you spend a lot of money. As somebody who, had a wedding, you spent a lot of money on it, and you just
And
wanna
you're
talk about how
excited.
great it was.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
excited about it. So, yeah, I wanna hear from everybody, and every wedding is different, and every person's experience is different. So,
Yeah,
the more I hear from different people, the better I can do my job.
totally. Okay, E?
E is evolution, and this is when I first made this mnemonic, I thought it would be evergreen, but I changed it because actually I think the concept of evergreen content is dead. I
Ooh.
think that when I first started in 15 years ago, I knew exactly how many articles we had on the website. I knew all of them. You could ask me and I could be like, yep, we've got an article on that, you'll find it here. I knew that all of them ranked at number one or in the top three. And if they didn't, they were in the roadmap to be updated, and we cycled through that roadmap and we kept them updated, and you didn't have to do that much. You could leave them for like a year and they'd be fine, and then you'd go back. And then it became much more of a competitive landscape, and you couldn't do that anymore. And you definitely can't do that now. I will update something, I'll see it shoot up, the next week it's dropped down again. Then things are not as linear as they used to be, and you have to constantly be evolving your content in order to keep it where it needs to be. And evolving goes beyond just updating it as well. It's about, like, do we need to embed video content? Should I put some sort of interactive quiz in here? What do I need to make sure it's linking to? What do I need to make sure links into it? What kind of outreach could I do about this? How do we package it up to a newsletter? It's about evolving it all the time to make sure it's meeting people's needs. And, like, I do a lot of consultation work with vendors as well. And the thing I get asked the most is, like, should I have a blog? And I'm like, unless you really have a lot to talk about in a blog and you're going to keep it updated and you are going to really dedicate time to being a content person, I don't think you need a blog. I think what you need is 5 or 6 really solid pages that are relevant to what you do, and then you work on keeping those evolving rather than creating a new article about something every single week that you're doing just to tick a box, because you won't be able to make sure it ranks. It might rank for a bit and then it would drop because you need to do maintenance and you can't because you're busy, because you're shooting 60 weddings and you're also trying to write your other blogs. So yeah, for me, it's about having your core content and then making sure that it's fit to evolve, because you cannot just leave stuff to be evergreen anymore. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so instead of thinking about evergreen as, like, maybe the topic is technically evergreen, but it's not going to be the same
The content can't
guidance or
be. Yeah.
answer or format, from one quarter to the next sometimes, right? Like, things start changing so quickly that no, that's a really cool reframing of a way that people have been thinking for a long time. I mean, I know that people will think like, "Oh, okay, well, a year has gone by, I need to update my content," but you're right, like, especially when you think about industries like the wedding industry where trends change so dramatically, or, like, the economy impacts the way that people look at,
Yeah.
whether they can afford I mean, there's so much that can change that would fundamentally alter advice you're giving, presumably.
Yeah, it does. And also just what people want and expect from content. I started out, could write 700 words in an article, and that would be it. And that would rank. And now it's like, okay, Have we got the bullet points? Have we got the FAQs? Which bits optimized for snippets? Have we got video embedded in here? Have we got, if it's a music article, we need to add in the Spotify playlists. We need to, there are so many different ways to create a piece of interactive, helpful content now that you have to be ready for it to evolve, because you'll fall behind if you don't. So yeah, you have to be open to being able to develop your CMS and add more things to it, and make sure that when you're updating the content, you're doing a little bit more than just your basic spruce that you might have got away with 10 years ago. It needs to have more value added to it. It needs to have more detail, more depth. So yeah, it's for me, evolution has kind of taken over from the concept of evergreen.
I love it. Okay, last but not least,
the last S. This is stop single-use content. And this is, I think, what's the point? And stop single-use content are my absolute favorites in this whole thing. They're like the bookends of the two hills that I will die on. For me, if the content is not going to have any value in 6 months' time, we're not going to do it. So I am very militant about making sure content has a life ahead of it. I'm making sure that anything I find that doesn't is repurposed into something that does.
What a great prioritization element of, if you have a bunch of ideas and you're thinking, what's going to have the longevity? Maybe you need to update it, but what is just going to be so relevant to our audience and so necessary that it makes sense to invest those, because like you were just saying, it takes so much to create that initial piece of content now.
Yeah, it does.
That if you're going to do that, you want to make sure it's something, like you're saying, that's going to have that lasting value.
Yeah, and has a real purpose.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot on the editorial side as well. When people send me press releases and they've done a campaign and they've got a landing page, but it is just a one-off. And I know, well, I can link to that, but then I'm going to have a dead link in my content, and, someone might click on it 6 months down the line and it goes nowhere. And it's just not an experience that I want to cultivate for people. And that doesn't mean, that we shouldn't do fun campaigns and things, because I'm all for those. But I think we need to make sure that what we're doing has purpose behind it and can be reused. Or, when we do campaigns at Bridebook, they will link back to a page that already exists, that has value, that we will continue to build on. Because what's the point as well of building up all those links to something and then not using it anymore,
Do trend posts fall into that category, or do they have enough of is it, because you see those a lot?
Yeah. So when we do anything trend related in any of the jobs I've done, there's always been a wedding trends URL that has then been updated with the new trends each time, to make sure that we are keeping that one URL that's built up all the traction. And, sometimes there's stuff that is a big trend at weddings that does warrant content, but it usually has a good shelf life on it, because wedding trends are quite slow to go away, because, they start to emerge when people are planning. They're planning for 2 years. The trickle-on effect, so I think it will vary from industry to industry. And, some fashion sites have to do quick fire content that goes out and maybe isn't updated again. But even stuff like celebrity relationships, if we think it's a solid relationship, we'll make a URL for that couple, and it will be updated with everything from their dating to their engagement to the marriage to what goes on.
Yeah.
That becomes the life, rather than having 17 articles about Taylor Swift, there's one page that has solidly got everything you need to know about her on it.
I like that. That's a good example. Well, I loved that framework, so thank you very much for sharing it. I feel like there's a lot there, and it's sort of like a content strategy packaged into one word.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, my biggest thing is making sure everything has a purpose, because I think we can get really caught up in spending time doing stuff that actually we don't really know why we're doing it, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And you want to be doing good stuff that stands the test of time and gets good results. So I kind of built that to explain to people why I was always saying, but why are we doing this? Because I didn't want them to think I was just difficult.
Well, Zoe, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that with all of our watchers. If people want to learn more about what you're up to, your other insights and tips, where can they find you?
So I am on LinkedIn, Zoe Burke. My URL thing is Zoe Burke one. I'm on Instagram at Zoe Burke _editor, and I am on TikTok at wedding _editor. So all those places, I'm pretty active, chatting a lot, and always welcome messages and DMs and wedding planning questions and insights and SEO ones too.
Well, thank you so much again, Zoe, and thank you all so much for listening. If you'd like an invite to the after party, sign up for our newsletter. That's where you'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes tidbits, and our guests answer the spicy question of the month. This month, the question is, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever followed? Until next time, keep learning, keep testing, and keep showing up.